officially, this thing is awesome. Hey everyone, how's it going? Alright, so I've been working on this video for my fence installation for over a year so far. And the reason it's been taking so long is basically the simple fence installation turned into a whole bunch of other projects. I ran into a bunch of snags and I ended up having to basically create or invent some solutions to get me out of those snags. So the first little thing I created or I built for this fence installation is this thing. I call this Stompin' Tom. It's just a stick here of wood, and all I did is I welded a piece of tubing. This is a 1/2 inch plate. It's either 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8 plate, and I just painted it black. And I've been using this for stomping crush rock, and I used it heavily when I built the fence, just stomping the dirt around the posts. A little chainsaw jig I made for this chainsaw jig is just very simple. It's just a piece of tubing here with a piece of angle welded onto it and a plate here. This is an old table saw top that Ernie gave me, and I've been using this to weld on and a bunch of projects. Anyways, I ended up putting this on the back of my brand new Ford F150 Powerboost, Jack's new baby. And
it's a miracle he hasn't slept out here yet.
This is guys, I'm so excited about this truck. I've been holding on to my 2010 Honda Ridgeline for 12 years, you know. And the reason I held on to that truck so long is mainly because I couldn't find a truck that I felt had anything more to offer than what my Ridgeline could do. And so I just figured I'd run that till I found something better. And this is the first, I think, true innovation in truck in a long time. Not the fact that this is hybrid, there's nothing special about hybrid, but for me, the best thing that Ford did on this truck was they added an option for a 7.2 kilowatt inverter. And so it's basically a 30 amp 240 volt plug, or there's 4 outlets. You can see on the back here, I've got 4 15 amp outlets, 2 from each inverter, and then I've got this 30 amp plug here, so I can basically power my entire house from this truck.
Can't see that very well, but you move your recycling bag.
Jack's got a bunch of stuff in the back here because he's
it's just
in the middle of a project here. So as you can see right now, I'm running my chainsaw from this and this jig. So these posts down here I was able to dig with the backhoe, no problem. But when I got around the trees over here in our little tree island here, I didn't want to get in there with the backhoe because I knew I was going to tear up the roots and just wreck that whole area. So I had a bunch of these anchors that came with my shelter logics. That we have a very rocky ground here, so these are kind of useless for us. It's very hard to get these in the ground. So I just cut a couple of them up and I made myself a drill bit, and then I ground the end here to tree little flat spots here so the drill could grab onto it, and I was able to use this to basically drill some of the posts that were near the trees.
And the well.
And the well, yeah.
The well was the most
I didn't want to
important
dig next to the well. So yeah, I welded a couple of these together. This worked great. So, and then the third little idea I'll show you guys later, but it's going to be a system for holding the roll of wire on the forks of the tractor. So stick around and you'll see that. So I'll show you guys what this looks like.
Lots loud. While he's setting up, we've got our big guardian over here watching the blueberry bushes. It actually works.
So what I'm able to do with this flat spot is it's perfect for when I get the
He's
bottom
going too
rail
fast for me.
flat here, and then I'll be able to nail the wire to this. So I'll have a nice top rail here that'll handle the weight by pushing down on the post, and then the other one will be for pushing against.
We're hoping that works.
So
Because the deer are not our friend.
the deer are not
I'm
our
starting
friends
to think
now.
about eating them. Just kidding.
All right, so time to do the third little jig that I mentioned earlier. Okay, for this project, I didn't go online doing any research. Maybe there's something like this out there. Maybe there isn't. I have no idea. I didn't do any research. This is all out of Jack's head, and I'm just winging this as I go. So the basic concept of this is going to be that it's kind of a tripod type thing, three legs. So I've got these cut at a 30-degree angle. I have another leg on this side, and then this is going to be where the roll is going to go. I'm going to put a piece of wood in here, a straight piece of wood that I'll shape to fit inside this. I'm going to drill a hole into this so I can put a screw into that. And then over here I've got two fork slots. So the fork should go in here. This was 3.5 inches wide, just under that. So my forks are 3.5 inches wide. So I ended up cutting them so I could get them a little bit further apart. So the forks will hold this up like this, and then lift, and then I can drive around with the tractor. When the fence is on my left, the forks will be adjusted to the left of the tractor like this, and then I can unroll this and put a pin in it, and then tighten it up, adjust the height of it easily with the tractor. So the whole idea of this is trying to get something that I can put this fence up all by myself, and then maybe give you guys some ideas. I don't know if there's some farmers out there that could probably whip something like this up. metal part. I don't know if I'll bother painting this. It's gonna be like a one-time use project. So my table wasn't very level here because I usually use an old table saw top to make sure everything's level, and obviously I left it outside when I was working on the fence last, so that's why this thing's a little wobbly, but it should still be fine for what I'm trying to do. I'm gonna probably just weld a couple little feet under each of the tripod ends so that it's only touching at 3 points, so it'll work out even though it's crooked. Nice and sturdy, heavy enough. So I think once I put the roll here, the fact that, you know, this is metal and the weight's gonna want to fall this way. They got these little feet under here, keep it stable. So right now, perfectly stable. So now let's work on this piece of wood here. Alright, so there's the jig. And I've got a little set screw there, keeps it from wobbling this way. So I've got a hole. This is just a regular piece of spruce, and then I squared off the end here to put it in that, the inside of that tubing was 2.5 inches. So I just squared that off on a table saw, and all you do is you make one cut and then you flip it and you get the flat edge. So then it's very easy to make a square.
Well, I'm good. Oh wait, I'm stuck. I see myself poking an eye out here with it. Come on. I'm stuck. You're almost there. Okay, I think maybe a little more. Depends on where you want to stick it.
That should be good. Alright, so I had to get Jill's help to help me unroll it because this is fairly long, fairly far away from the tractor.
Me and my Bruce strength are required.
From here on I should be able to just use the tractor once it's strapped in.
When he needs some strength, he calls on his wife.
I want to talk a little bit about this fence here. So, the reason we...
This is why he doesn't let me videotape, folks, but it's so much fun.
The reason Jill and I picked this style of fencing is these posts were what? Do you remember how much they were?
Oh, like $2 or $3. They were super cheap.
$2 or $3 a piece. So if you think of going in the woods,
for those
cutting
rails.
down a tree, and then putting it on a router, which is basically what this, or on a lathe, putting it on a lathe, and then cutting off all the bark, and doing that for $2 a stick.
Buddy didn't have much on his.
I mean, just cutting down the tree
list.
will take you a couple minutes. So now, mind you, these guys, you know, they're getting this done with machines, so that's why they can afford to do this way. But so originally we were going to use 4x4 posts, lumber, and
then we realized it was going to cost a fortune.
Price of lumber went to
shit
3 times what it was, and then I told Jill I would use a sawmill and make my own lumber, and then that was also very time consuming. So Jill was on Facebook like she usually is, and she's seen this guy advertising these posts.
Actually, a friend of mine put in a fence with these posts. And I seen that she was putting up a fence. I asked her where she got her fence, and she told me about this guy who knew a guy down the road. So we went to see the guy.
the guy who knew the guy who knew.
That's what happens when you need some. You gotta know a guy who knows a guy.
Anyways, so we got this whole fence done for about $250 worth of posts.
Yeah, something like that.
And this roll of fencing was probably one of the most expensive things.
It was a lot of money. It was 700 and some bucks, I think.
Eh?
7 something?
Is it that much?
I thought so. I could be wrong though. And look, we still have all these posts over here.
See those 500 or so, but
over there.
But I mean, if you're gonna make a fence this size with lumber, you're into thousands of dollars. So this was a very inexpensive way for us to make this fence, long and short.
It's not the prettiest, but it does the trick.
And then I made that jig for basically holding the fencing upright so I could put this on by myself. And it's kind of working, I guess.
Yeah, it's working because it's holding, I mean, it's holding all the fencing up right now because the fence is all nice and taut against itself. And I'm not even touching it.
The trees on our, we call it our tree island, or at least that's what I call it.
Yep, that's where my hammock goes, right under there.
I use some of the trees as corner anchors. And
I think you need a bigger hammer.
So that, the starters and the ends will kind of come on these trees. Now what I want to do here is I want to make my hammer on this side of the tree, so as the tree grows, it's not going to pull the fencing and it'll just kind of stay straight.
Yeah, we started this fence over a year ago.
So this fence, because it's growing on a tree here,
it's going to grow.
the tree will eventually grow over this fence.
Well, you'll have to just pull those out every now and then. And
yeah, or I do that, which I probably won't.
Well. And yes, in case you're wondering, we're going to put chicken wire down along the bottom there because there's a hell of a gap. And so we have deer, and we have a groundhog, and we have a porcupine, and now we have a rabbit. So
the rabbit, can I eat the rabbit?
I like the rabbit to lure the hawk. I think that's where our last rabbits went.
Some clever farmer will probably tell me all the things that I did wrong with this fence. This is my first time putting up a fence.
Yeah, and we're not fence people.
And if you don't like my technique,
thanks. But we don't really care.
No, I think it's
no, good criticism
I think
is
it's
good.
pretty good. I mean, look, I'm by myself doing this fence, and she helped me to unroll it, but
She helped me.
Look, I'm able to put the fence up and all that stuff, right? So I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, it's coming. All right, I'm gonna say goodbye. Because as much fun as it is to watch you hammer in this fence, ooh, it's gonna look nice.
Repeat.
And you know what? It's gonna look really nice.
Repeat 500 times.
Yeah, you know what's gonna look really nice though? When Jill covers this fence full of flowers and vines, and peas and beans, and cucumbers. You're not even gonna see this fence.
So that was
nice.
that was the other thing I wanted to mention. The reason I picked this style of fencing is it's perfect for putting pole beans, climbing peas, and like she said.
So we're gonna fill the inside of the fence with food, and the outside of the fence on we call it my lawn side, which ended up being like maybe 10 feet now that I have of lawn left, of flowers.
And
so
this really ugly area here,
yeah, that's gonna be another garden bed.
Is gonna be the last garden bed I'm gonna make inside the enclosure here.
Right now it's the weeds.
Right now it's weeds, yeah. I've been just dumping all my weeds here, but I eventually want to put a layer of just paper, I think is all I'll put, and then gonna fill this full of
It'll be the last bed.
Wood chips, and that will be the last bed. And then likely this will be where we have all the pole beans, all the peas.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Yeah. So
Ciao.
hopefully next year we'll have a ton of apples and peaches and nectarines.
And yes, for those of you who are going to say it, we are very much aware that this
apricots.
fence is too short for deer, but we couldn't get poles any longer than what we got. So we're going to add probably another 2 feet with string onto the top.
If we have issues.
If we have issues.
If we have issues,
Yeah.
we'll add an electrified
Yeehaw!
piece on top. But yeah,
All
and
right.
if you're wondering why I didn't put just an electric fence, my neighbor's got a really young
Rambunctious little boy.
so I just didn't think that that would be a good idea. Up and down, and then just come in and I just nail it at the top. Officially, this thing is awesome!
And spool and more.
That whole, I guess, half of the garden in what, about an hour and a half?
I don't even know if it's
by
been
myself,
that long.
so,
yeah, it's pretty fast.
She'll help me get it started. Alright, so when I want to put the fence on this side, come in with the forks on that side, so the fence is on the right side of the tractor. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around with the right side of the tractor around the fence this way. I did the left this way and then the right this way. So here I go. All right, easy as that. Easy as that. Just a little side note here, on a future video I want to do a video of my Toyota RAV4 hybrid and compare it to my Ford F150 Powerboost. Those are two hybrid vehicles, and I just figured people would be interested in seeing what I think of this. I've had the RAV4 hybrid for let's see, just over a year and a half now, and the Ford F150 3 months probably, and I love them both. I just love hybrids. The whole idea of a hybrid is I think where the industry should be going right now. Alright, so one of the first issues I ran into as I was digging my post here, I was coming around, no problem, digging with the backhoe, and as I got near this road here, I started hitting all the rocks that were laid down as part of the foundation for this road. So you can see here some big rocks. There's a giant rock over here, you know, that I basically dug these up. And then the next challenge was, how do I get this post in the ground deep enough? So I got a little discouraged by it and let it go and figured I'd think of it over the winter. And what I ended up doing was just using the rocks to pry up the post. So in around this you can't see it because I got wood chips covering it, but in around this post is a bunch of big rocks, and they fit just nicely so that, you know, I can get that in. You can get a better look at this one here. You can see that post is just sitting in the middle, 3 big rocks. And then over here, this was a real issue because here, I not only did I hit the rock base for the road, I actually hit into a bedrock. There's like a vein of bedrock that goes through my garden here, right here. And I hit it in one of my beds. It's very shallow near the surface. So I hit that and I was like, what the heck? So anyways, I ended up digging down deep enough, same thing, and I put some rocks in. The reason I got this funny shape here is I'm using the angles of my fence here to kind of support this whole thing. So it's not super sturdy, but sturdy enough to hold the fence. And you know, I'm hoping to get 5 to 10 years out of this fence before I start having issues. So I think it should be okay. So this is the gate I made for this side, and I had a really hard time getting the posts in here because it's full of roots. And so I dug in with my little auger and a drill bit, and so where they went in was where there was no rocks, and the drill bit kind of went in between rocks. So I hammered the posts where I got them, and so if you look at this, it's kind of a crooked thing, but it kind of looks like very hobbitish. So I kind of liked it in the end. And Jill and I went to Lunenburg, Nova Scotia, and we found an old antique store where we were able to buy these. So this is...
It's really hard to see it.
Not
sure if
antique brass. These are all marine. Yeah. So these are brass hinges. I can remove the pin here, so I can remove the door if I want to. They're massive, heavy-duty inches. One of those hinges today would be a fortune.
Ooh, sorry.
But I was able to get them for a pretty good price at this antique store. And I've done the same thing on the other side. And then, of course, as I mentioned, I got all this really cool brass hardware. So these should last forever. And there's the finish gate here. I use the same theme. Basically, these grooves I made using the F150 and the jig I showed earlier. So I got this through the garden, and then this is our main gate that we use, and it's wide enough that I can get my tractor bucket through. I can bring my tractor bucket in here with some wood chips and open this nice and wide. And so one cool thing that I put in the garden this year, I've been wanting to add for quite a while, is the sunchokes. So just see, this is what they look like. They've been in the ground since May, maybe?
I think so.
Yeah. And they're supposed to get taller than that and then have these nice yellow flowers. So
I'm really anxious to see the flowers, but
with this, because this was probably the worst bed I had in this entire garden, and I struggled to grow anything in this bed. So I figured I'd try the sunchokes, and they're supposed to be really good at making soil as well. So this is going to be the bed where they're going to be staying. They're supposed to be an invasive species, so don't panic.
So we put them in the garden.
I'm not worried about them being invasive. What happens is if you leave any little piece of root in the ground or any of the tubers in the ground, they'll come back. And that's actually what I want. So I'm hoping to have this whole area full of these things. They're like a potato, so I'll make a video in the future showing what these look like when they come out. I think of the sunchokes as almost like a survival food, because you can leave the tubers in the ground through the winter and just pick them anytime you can get at them, pick them through the winter right through the spring. So the benefit of them is you don't require a place to store them. You can pick them fresh right through the whole winter. So
sorry.
what I'm trying to do with this garden is to have things that I can pick year round. So this year we put in some kale. I'm going to try to keep that kale going through the fall, winter, and then next spring we'll put a fresh batch of kale, and then that'll be a 2-year-old kale. So this is the kale we had from 2 years ago, and it's been delicious. We haven't eaten it yet, but I'm hoping through the fall we'll be munching away on the kale. And the cucumber, I had to replant 3 times, so this is the 3rd time, and I've got 1 cucumber plant. And,
yeah, this year we did not have any luck with the garden.
Hopefully.
Between the bugs and the pests and the...
Yeah, even that's been eaten by the...
He's growing a little, but
Oh, we
last
got our first
year-
cucumber, Mom.
last year at this time we were eating cucumbers 3 and 4 a day.
We got a cucumber.
The kale is starting, poor kale. Between the slugs and the groundhog. But, oh well. We're gonna get some raised beds going, and then we'll have some food that we can eat without being destroyed every 5 seconds. The
But
deer
this is-
ate all the apple trees, smashed the trees, we lost all our apples.
We had 50 apples.
That was
we
a
had-
rough go this year.
We had at least 50 apples. There must have been 30, maybe 60 apples. 30 on this tree and 30 on this one. These were all beautiful. This tree actually was gorgeous when we
This
planted
tree
it.
got eaten.
And
by
it's
the
it's
deer.
a honeycrisp tree, so
Sad looking tree now.
yeah. But you know, if anything, there's anything I got to say about the wood chips, they work phenomenally for fruit trees. I mean, this tree,
Oh, there's one.
this apple
one
tree,
apple.
this is just this year's growth. This is this year's growth. This
See if
is
I can
this year's
find it.
growth,
There it is.
right? And that tree has probably added a good half an inch to its size.
Yeah, it's growing really good. We got it last year.
This tree here, this nectarine tree,
It was dead
was dead.
when we
It
bought
was.
it.
We planted it, and you can see
There was
you
no
can
leaves
still
left on
see
it.
The dead sticks here, you know.
It took off really
And
good.
It just took off with a little bit of my homemade fertilizer, and
I think it found the
which is-
logs in the bottom of that bed
yeah. I
with
think
the gargantuan cherry over there.
This little cherry tree had been completely eaten away.
Yeah,
by
the deer got his
and
head
look
in.
at it now it's popping right out. So
Coming back.
yeah, the wood chips,
More
trees,
sunchokes over there.
fantastic. But what I need to do with this garden is to treat it with lime. So if you guys are doing a back to eating garden, make sure you test your soil. You may have the same issue I have with the soil that's too acidic, and if it's too acidic, things that don't like acid will not grow at all. Like for example, I can't grow
Carrots,
carrots.
parsnips.
Parsnips were growing a little bit now that I treated, but I can't grow spinach. I can't even get spinach to come up like from seed. Like so, I think once I treat it with lime, I should have no problem because there's nothing wrong with this dirt. It's just too acidic, and
Cause see, we are surrounded by huge pines and lots of hemlock. Hemlocks and pines are. We have a few birch and some oak, but mostly hemlock, pine, spruce, and fir. Dominated by hemlock. But
as you can tell, tomatoes love this soil. We've always
we
had,
don't have a problem with
we've
tomatoes.
always had great tomatoes, and this year is no exception.
And yes, we don't thin our tomatoes, but we actually did. I took about 200 tomato plants out of there, and I'm not even lying.
Yeah, it's not no
I
exaggeration. You
took
can see,
out
like,
so
this is-
many, and these tomatoes are not planted. These are all the tomatoes left over from seeds of tomatoes that fell on the ground last year, because all the tomatoes that we planted, the groundhog and the slugs ate. So we just decided, well, we'll just let them grow, since we couldn't grow anything else. And they just, wow, they're just
I would say
taking over.
by
And over
the
there
end
too, it's
of
loaded with tomatoes. Just
by the end of
everywhere.
August, these tomatoes would be as tall as this tree or this.
Yeah, last year they were like crazy, like 6-7 feet tall. It was insane. I've never seen tomatoes grow like that. He put these big giant stakes in the ground last year and I made fun of him. I was like, God, that's overkill. You really don't need that big. And by the end of the summer, all the tomatoes were at the top of the...
Jack was right.
At the top of the poles. Boys, does he ever like to hear that. I don't mind saying when I was wrong because it doesn't happen very often.
All right. See you later from Jack and Jill. Okay.
Sweet. I'll edit out you.
I'm gonna edit you out.